What do you guys think?
Good. I think it just gives a good cliffhanger.
Normally I review Transformers toys and diecast cars on my channel, but I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to comment on this new Transformers cartoon. So my kids have seen Transformers Prime, Transformers Animated and a bit of Beast Wars, which they enjoyed, so let's see how this one compares. Most G1 Transformers fans are in their 40s or 50s and may have family of their own. Is this cartoon something both parents and kids can watch together? And is the first episode any good? So if you're into Transformers, diecast cars and play figures, do like and subscribe to my channel. I really like talking about those and sharing them with you guys. So the episode begins with a scene featuring two Decepticons, Hardtop and Swindle, stealing Energon from the Autobots. We first see Optimus and then Elita 1 appear and stop them, but then they also come across these mechanical robot spiders which attack Optimus. So this is the first time we hear like a new voice from Alan Tudyk, and Peter Cullen, to follow up from his those expectations, his association with Optimus is similar to that of Kevin Conroy and Batman the Animated Series. It's instantly recognizable and iconic. And while Alan's voice doesn't have the same gravitas as Cullen, especially Cullen's voice in the movies where it's like, give me your face, it's not essential for a kids show. Transformers Animated, it didn't have Cullen's voice either, but it worked out very well because the Optimus featured in that cartoon was a younger version. So the voice clearly differentiates the personality of Optimus clearly. So, I think Alan's voice, it makes Optimus sound less war-burdened. It's a fresh start. I didn't mind it at all. And he does a great rollout. When he wants to, he can really make his voice sound quite, gravelly. So, the cartoon is set in the small town of Witwicky, which is a nice homage to previous human characters involved in the Transformers franchise. The opening credits is just a logo reveal, which is a shame because I was really hoping that they would showcase some of the other regular cast of Transformers, because we saw quite a few in the trailer, especially like the G ones. So we got like Bumblebee, I saw Wheeljack and other guys as well. So maybe in the future they'll expand it. But for now, so it switches then back to the two main children characters from the trailers. Robbie and his sister Morgan, they're just playing around on their house rooftop. There's a nice family dinner scene with their parents, and their reason for where they are in Witwicky is because the mother had a job there, so the whole family moved from living in a busy city to living in a smaller town, which is a big change, especially for Robbie. And then he takes off on his bike out of frustration. He wants to cycle back all the way to Philly, and then suddenly, both the kids, Morgan, who is following, they're both trapped in between the spiders we saw earlier and oncoming vehicles. These spiders are really hostile and they open fire, and the kids just fly off the bridge, and they land pretty harshly in this cartoon, which is also, where they land is near this glowing cave. This entrance is like bright blue, and they investigate a glowing rock which activates, there's a voice that says like legacy and some other words in the background, and a cybernetic sleeve attaches and appears to the kids, and then two robots, Twitch and Thrash, appear. These like the new Earth-based Transformers promoted in the trailers called Terrans, or Terrans, I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. I guess it would be Terrans. But the robots, they're initially cautious, and the kids can feel the emotions of the two robots through their cyber sleeves. And then, there's a bit where they get to know each other or introduced to each other, and then like another mechanical robot spider appears and tries to attack the kids, and then the new Terran robots blow up the spider and shield the kids. It just felt these spiders just keep coming at exact moments, and it felt a bit contrived and a bit forced. The kids, they didn't really, I guess they wouldn't really pick up on that because that everything for them, they're still very new to this. But yeah, they didn't. My kids were very quiet. They didn't really, Transformers Animated. They laughed out a lot because it was quite silly, and they really enjoyed that, and it's very accessible. Here, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of new characters, and setup ends up being sort of the main kind of content of this first episode. So after the spider robot is destroyed by the new Terrans, the main villain Mandroid is revealed as the controller of the spiders, and he uses them to observe things around the town. Then we just cut to a scene where this Decepticon is just being dismantled by his spiders, just on a kind of bench whilst talking. It was a bit disturbing, I found. But similar to Transformers Movie 1, the kids then take the Terrans to their house while hiding them from their parents, and then they just give them Transformers comics to read to learn about their species. Which, yeah, I mean, some of the covers are quite cool. I think some of them were like some of the IDW, or maybe inspired by those IDW comics. Morgan's character is then used to set up the backstory of the current setup of the Transformer faction relations by asking her dad to talk about the history. So maybe they'll show more about the kind of emblem that's on the Autobots and even the Decepticons. It's not the ones we've seen before. But yeah, maybe they will show that up in closer detail later on. There's a nice G1 homage during the story that the father tells that explains how Bumblebee helped the Autobots use a space bridge to transport to Earth. And in that they've inserted like a G1 style mum figure of the kids and how she helped the Transformers during her previous military employ, and that now she's a park ranger. There's a really nice cameo of Spike Witwicky on Bumblebee's shoulders. And I remember Transformers Animated, the first episode, also had a similar G1 style homage as a history video of the Great War. So it follows the same pattern as that cartoon. So, my thoughts here was that, like some other comments I've seen, is this an alternate timeline before the G1 movie, i.e., the end of season 2, and then here it just they just made peace, the Decepticons and Autobots, and, time moves on and this series happens. But I think more will be revealed as the series progresses, and I look forward to that too. And then after that, back to the Terrans, after they read all these comics and they hear the story about Bumblebee being a hero, which to me, it came across as a bit of self-promotion from within the show, as though, the writers are telling us how we're supposed to feel. And with the kids, it did feel flat because they don't really get that. And, with them showing, not telling is really important, which I think Transformers Animated did very well. And, the kids, they really love the squabbles between the Autobots and the different personalities coming out. It was also very entertaining. So, back to the Terrans. They don't feel any association with the history of like the war and all that, and they just want to get on with their own lives. So it then cuts to Optimus and Elita 1 meeting Ranger Malto, who's putting up traffic cones. She explains to them and for us, the viewers, that the war is over. And then Optimus reveals they've been working with Ghost, a military op, to ensure stable Cybertronian relations, and that they've discovered a new threat, which are these mechanical spiders, and they need her to get involved, which she doesn't. She's quite reluctant. And then suddenly, cue this cool background music track for the arrival of Megatron as this dual rotor helicopter with vertical landing and takeoff capabilities. He just picks up Ranger Malto, and then the episode just ends there. So yeah, they fit in a lot in that first episode. Like I said before, lots of new characters, completely different sort of, I guess, set up with how the Autobots and Decepticons are at this point in the cartoon. And, the family is the main focus of the episode, and the Transformers characters just have a bit at the beginning and the end. There's a little bit in the middle with Mandroid and the Decepticons, but actually they don't really appear much in a cartoon that is, supposed to be about Transformers. The focus here, I guess, the Terrans do get a lot more screen time because I guess these are the new kind of characters to be promoted. The first Earthborn or Earth-made Transformers. So yeah, there's I just felt that there's quite a lot of stuff going on that, instead of this gradual build up where, just a few characters are introduced at a time, it was all just in there. And I think if you're going to do that, don't just release part one, release part two. Like some cartoon series started off with the release of the first 2 or 3 episodes, just so that viewers can get into it and the foundations of the story can be built. But, I think the cost at the end of this is just there was a lot of telling, not enough showing. And, usually my kids burst out laughing if something's funny. They're very open about how they feel. But this, they were quite silent, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing, because anyone with lots of young kids knows that if it's usually very noisy. So if kids are silent, it means that they're engaged in something, they're concentrating on something, they're trying to work out what's going on, which is a good thing. The show was interesting enough for them to really try to get into it. But at the same time, my kids didn't really laugh that much. They didn't really say, "Oh wow," like in Transformers Prime, when the fight scenes and or like some of the races. They didn't say, there wasn't like that wow factor that made them think, "Oh yeah, this is really cool," and I want to see that this and that. And yeah, there wasn't that in the show. There was just a lot of stuff being told to them. So I think it would have been better to just break that down and have a bit more fun, a few more silly moments in there, a few more, sort of, character moments. But like I say, my kids, they really enjoyed Transformers Prime, Transformers Animated, and I think Prime had this really great setup of the human characters. For example, Jack, we show, he's seen as this kind of rejected, bullied outsider character who bonds well with RC because they both feel like a fish out of water, for different reasons, of course, but there's this strong theme of being an outcast which unites them. And with Transformers Animated, it didn't really have any humans until pretty much at the end, with the Suntac systems and Sari being introduced. So up until then, it was the main team of Autobots interacting with each other, which is what Transformers is all about. The Transformers, we saw all their personalities come through, and the tone of the show was silly and light-hearted. I think Transformers Animated is probably the best, the one that my kids enjoyed the most. I think when they get a bit older, like when they're 12, 13, maybe they'll revisit Prime and they'll like that a bit more. But for young kids, which Earthspark is aimed at, it felt, it was kind of missing, like the silliness and the fun. I think the actual, they really liked the visuals. They were really well done. They looked very nice, very slick, very smooth. But, at the end of the day, it's got to have that heart, it's got to have that character, and I hope to see more of that as the show progresses. So, yeah, if you enjoyed this review, subscribe for more. I think I'll do a few more episode reviews, see how it goes. And I think there's maybe like 26 episodes, something like that, that's been ordered. But I think I've heard that there's a break in between. But anyway, I'll cover as many as I can. So, yeah, perhaps I'll see you in the next video.